I want you to think about something for just a minute. How much money have you actually spent on pest control for your garden over the last 5 years? I'm not talking about just the big purchases. I mean all of it. The neem oil, the insecticidal soap, the bags of ladybugs that flew away in 48 hours, the yellow sticky traps, the copper tape, the bottles of organic spray with labels you could barely read. Added up, honestly, and for most of us, it's a few $100s at minimum. I know it was for me. And here's the part that still stings when I think about it. Every single season, the pests came back anyway. I'd spray, they'd disappear for a week, and then they'd be right back, like I'd done nothing at all. Meanwhile, the Amish families a few miles from my garden spent nothing. $0, no products, no purchased insects, no gadgets, and their gardens had a fraction of the pest pressure mine did. That bothered me for a long time until I finally got quiet enough to understand what they were doing instead. What I'm sharing today is 6 methods they use to manage garden pests without spending a single cent, using nothing but what they already have, what nature provides, and what most of us are throwing away. The shift in thinking that changed everything for me happened during a conversation I'm almost embarrassed to describe because the answer was so simple, I should have seen it myself. I was talking with an Amish gardener I'd gotten to know over a few seasons, and I mentioned I'd been battling aphids on my pepper plants. I asked what he used to spray them. He paused, looked at me with an expression that was patient but slightly puzzled, and said, "I don't spray for them, I let the ladybugs handle it." And then he pointed to a long strip of wildflowers running along the edge of his garden, buzzing with insects. He hadn't bought those ladybugs. They lived there because he built them a reason to stay. That one moment reorganized how I thought about every pest problem I'd ever had. And the foundation of how the Amish approach. This isn't about reaction, it's about design. If the garden is designed correctly from the beginning, the right plants in the right places, the right daily habits, the right relationship with the natural world already living around it, pest pressure stays manageable without any purchased input. Modern integrated pest management science has been arriving at the same conclusion for decades. The most effective pest control isn't reactive, it's structural, built into the system before a single insect shows up. The first method is nothing more than 15 minutes of your time each morning. And I want to be honest about why something this unremarkable is the foundation everything else rests on. Every Amish gardener I've spent time with talks about walking their garden first thing in the morning, the way they talk about eating breakfast. It isn't dramatic, requires no equipment, and will never get you excited the way a new product might, but it is the single most effective pest habit you can build. And before the day heats up, you walk through every row slowly with a small bucket of soapy water. You are not admiring the garden. You are looking. You turn leaves over, run your eyes along every stem, check the soil around plant bases. When you find a pest, a hornworm, a cluster of squash bug eggs, a handful of cabbage worms, you pick it off and drop it into the bucket. The reason it works so consistently is timing. Most serious pest damage doesn't happen because a few insects showed up. It happens because a small population was allowed to go unnoticed long enough to multiply. A single tomato hornworm can strip an entire branch in 2 days. 2 squash bugs can lay hundreds of eggs in a week. The morning walk catches everything while the numbers are still small. After a couple of seasons of doing this, something else happens that no product can give you. You come to know your garden at a level of detail that changes how you garden entirely. That relationship with what's actually happening in your beds is worth more than anything on a shelf. The second method uses plants you probably already grow, and after the first season it costs nothing because the Amish save their own seed year after year. Most garden pests find their target crops by following chemical scent signals, and those plants release into the air. And when you surround your crops with strong scented herbs and flowers, you disrupt that signal. Entomologists call it olfactory confusion. The pest cannot locate your tomatoes because the basil and marigolds overwhelming the scent trail. If you already grow basil, stop keeping it separate and start planting it directly among your tomatoes. 1 plant for every 3 or 4 tucked within 10 inches of the stem. It repels aphids, whiteflies, and the moths that lay hornworm eggs. If you grow dill or cilantro, let it flower and stand through the season among your brassicas. Flowering dill repels cabbage moths and simultaneously attracts the parasitic wasps that prey on cabbage worms. So one plant does two jobs at once. French marigolds planted around bed borders suppress root knot nematodes below the soil, while their scent above ground deters whiteflies and squash bugs. Nasturtiums, which self-seed freely after a single season, act as a trap crop that pulls aphids away from your beans and peppers. Every one of these can be grown from saved seed or divided from what you already have after your first season. The cost is permanently zero. If you're watching this and something in the last few minutes has made you look at your garden differently, I'd genuinely love to hear about it. Leave a comment and tell me what pest situation you've been dealing with, or what you've tried that hasn't worked the way you hoped. I read every comment that comes in, every one, and those conversations are honestly where I learn what to make next. This channel is still small enough for real exchanges with the people watching, and I don't want to lose that. The third method requires even less daily effort than the first two because you're not doing the pest control yourself. You're setting up conditions for wild insects to do it for you permanently and for free. One ladybug eats up to 50 aphids in a single day. A single lacewing larva consumes around 200 aphids in its brief lifespan. Parasitic wasps lay their eggs directly inside living hornworms and cabbage worms. Ground beetles patrol the soil surface at night, eating slugs, cutworms, and grubs. These insects are already in your area. The only question is whether your garden gives them a reason to stay. The Amish never buy beneficial insects. Instead, they build habitat, a section of dill or fennel allowed to flower and stand through the season, a small patch of clover along one edge, a pile of old stones in a corner where ground beetles can shelter during the day. None of it looks tidy by conventional standards. All of it is functional and all of it is free. The fourth method is the only one on this list that involves making something, and it takes about 10 minutes using things already in your kitchen. The Amish don't buy organic sprays from a garden center. They make their own from garlic, hot peppers, and plain dish soap. Three things that most households already have on hand at any given time. Take 4 or 5 cloves of garlic and 2 hot peppers. Cayenne works perfectly, but any hot pepper you have will do. Chop them roughly, add them to a quart of warm water, and let the mixture steep overnight, at least 12 hours. The next morning, strain it through cheesecloth or an old kitchen towel into a spray bottle, then add 1 teaspoon of plain liquid dish soap. The soap helps the mixture adhere to leaf surfaces and breaks down the waxy outer coating of soft-bodied insects like aphids on contact. Spray both sides of affected leaves in the early morning or evening, never in midday sun, because the soap can cause leaf scorch and intense heat. One application deters pests for 5 to 7 days and needs to be reapplied after significant rain. I want to be straight with you about what this does and doesn't do. It is not a knockdown spray that eliminates an established infestation overnight. It is a deterrent. It makes your plants smell and taste wrong to the insects looking for them. Combined with the morning walk, the companion planting, and the beneficial insect habitat, that deterrent effect is more than sufficient for the vast majority of pest situations in a backyard garden. But it is one layer in a system, and the system is what does the real work. The fifth method uses materials most households are throwing away or have sitting in a garage unused. And the Amish salvage what they have and turn it into physical protection for vulnerable plants. And you can do exactly the same. The simplest version is the cardboard collar, and when you transplant young seedlings, take an empty toilet paper roll or cut a paper towel roll into 3-inch sections and slide one around the base of each transplant, pushing it about 1 inch into the soil so it stands 2 inches above the surface. This creates a physical barrier against cutworms, the larvae that travel through the top inch of soil at night and sever seedling stems at the base. And by the time the cardboard breaks down naturally, 4 to 6 weeks in, the stems have hardened enough that cutworms can no longer damage them. For larger scale protection, old bed sheets, worn curtain shears, or any lightweight cotton fabric draped over hoops made from bent wire hangers provides a floating row cover that keeps cabbage moths, flea beetles, and other flying pests from landing on plants to lay eggs. Light and rain pass through freely. The pests don't remove the covers once flowering begins, so pollinators can reach the blooms. The Amish waste nothing. And the habit of seeing an old sheet as a garden tool rather than a rag pile is one of the more quietly transformative shifts in how you think about your garden. The sixth method is probably my favorite on this list, and it's the one that made me realize how differently the Amish see the relationship between a garden and the insects trying to get into it. Instead of trying to keep every pest away from your crops, you plant something the pest wants even more and put it somewhere you don't mind losing. Nasturtiums are the classic example. Aphids are more attracted to nasturtiums than to almost any vegetable crop you'll grow. Plant them at the ends of your rows and around the outer edges of the garden, and the aphids will cluster on the nasturtiums and largely leave your beans, peppers, and squash alone. Once the nasturtiums are loaded, the beneficial insects from the habitat you've built will come to feed on them. You've redirected the pest and fed your allies with the same plant. For flea beetles, which can devastate young eggplant and brassica seedlings in a matter of days, plant a sacrificial row of radishes 2 feet in front of your main planting. Flea beetles prefer radish foliage and will congregate there first. You lose the radish tops and your eggplants grow undisturbed. Radish seed is among the easiest to save, so after the first season, even the seed costs you nothing. That's the part most people miss about how all of this works together. No single method on this list is a complete solution on its own. The morning walk catches what slips past the companion plants. The beneficial insects clean up what the walk misses. The kitchen spray deters what the habitat hasn't yet addressed. The physical barriers protect the youngest plants while the system is still getting established. The trap crops redirect what's left, stacked together. These 6 methods provide the kind of comprehensive, season-long pest management that I never achieved with products, no matter how much I spent or how carefully I followed the directions on the label. I'd love for you to subscribe if you found any of this useful, not because this channel needs numbers, but because this is genuinely the kind of conversation I want to keep having. And I'd like you to be part of it when the next one comes out. If something in here changes what you tried this season, come back and tell me how it goes. The honest reports from people who've actually put these things into practice are more valuable to me than anything else you could offer. And if you know someone who's been pouring money into pest control and getting the same disappointing results every year, send this their way. That's the most useful thing any of this can do. I'll see you in the next